Yes, sir. So, good evening, everybody. I welcome you all for the Ask Me Anything series. I would like to invite our chair, Mr. Mithu Singaram, CEO of IITM MedTech Incubator, to start the session. Over
Thank
to
you
you,
very
sir.
much. Thank you very much, Archana. Today we are very honored and privileged to have Padma Shri Mohandas Pai with us, Chairman of Ariat Capital, Chairman of 314 Capital, Chairman of Manipal Global Education, a member of several boards, and his last position was CFO of India's first ever Nasdaq company listed as CFO, and he was selected many of time as the best CEO of the year. And he is a great supporter of startups, and he has started 14 different funds in the last several years. He also advises the government on startup policies and so on, and he was awarded the Padma Shri by the government of India, and also he was awarded the Karnataka Rajyastava Award in 2004. Mohan has got a bachelor's degree in commerce and an LLB from Bangalore University, and he's a chartered accountant and an all India rank holder he's a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. He's accompanied today by Nisha, who's a researcher and an engineer. She writes regularly about Indian economy and technology. Nisha produced India's first report on deep science innovation as a consultant editor at Use Story. Nisha is a technology fellow at Center for Cellular and Molecular Platform, India's premier life science innovation hub. She was a co-founder of Biotech Research, a biotech startup. Nisha recently moved back to India from the Silicon Valley, where she worked at the cutting edge of product development in semiconductors at Applied Material and Fuel Cell Technology at Bloom Energy. She holds a master's degree in chemical engineering from Carnegie Mellon and a bachelor's degree from RV College of Engineering. So I welcome both of you, and thank you very much, Mohan, for agreeing to do this. I'm so delighted to actually have you here today, and Nisha. And I'm going to ask our incubation manager, Pujista, who you've met in the past. She's going to be the host for the session. Come back in the end again. Pujista, over to you. You're very fortunate to be hosting these two guys today. You're a lucky day. Go for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the privilege. Nisha, I think as suggested by you, we can start with your presentation and then we will move to the Ask Me Anything series. The presentation will probably set the tone for the participants to ask the questions. Just to set a few guidelines, I'll request everybody to stay on mute while the presentation is going on. And you can post your questions on the chat box and we will take it after the presentation is over. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask the question as well, you could do that. But only after the presentation is done. Thank you. Over to you, Nisha. Nisha, you're on mute. You might want to unmute.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. Okay. So thanks, Pratishta. Thanks, Muthu. Very happy to be here. And with that, I'll get started. I hope everyone can see my screen. Today, we're talking about massive, large-scale disruption of healthcare by frontier technologies. As an IITM incubator and students at IITM, you all are at the forefront of what's going on in the disruption of healthcare in India. So I'll just start off with some macro details because that'll set the tone for what's changing in India and how healthcare technologies can respond to it, right? Now, our population growth rates are reducing. But our life expectancy is increasing. Our child mortality rates have gone down. Our malnutrition rates have gone down, which means we're going to soon start having a large aging population supported by a gradually shrinking workforce. Now, this is coming at a time when our GDP, we're the fifth largest economy today by nominal GDP. We almost hit $3 trillion last year, just before COVID. In terms of purchasing power parity, of course, we are the third largest economy, just behind the US and China. And this is very interesting because slowly India is inching towards becoming a middle income economy. And so we're seeing all the participating or all the contributing the healthcare problems coming along with it. And that is what we can focus on today. Now, coming to healthcare, right? Now, healthcare's contribution to economic growth. There are many tangible and intangible contributions from healthcare to economic growth. It's always very interesting to us when, we look at union budget documents very frequently. We look at state budget documents. Always healthcare healthcare and human capital are relegated to social groups as opposed to economic. But if in fact, if you look at the effect of healthcare on economic growth, it's huge. But if we can increase the healthy lifespan of our population, we can see increased productivity, we can see increased consumption, increased investment, and reinvestment into health. And this virtuous cycle is where India needs to be in the next. We need to set up systems to be able to get into this virtuous cycle in the next 5 years before our population starts aging much quicker than it is now. So very quick global perspective on healthcare. Our current population of 7.6 billion is expected to reach about 9.8 in 2050. As I mentioned, child mortality rates are low, malnutrition is coming down, and the people are living longer. Life expectancy is increasing, but along with that, chronic disease prevalence is increasing. Number of people aged 60 or above is going to double by 2050. We're seeing the rise of non-communicable diseases. We're seeing the rise of lifestyle diseases. And all of this is changing the healthcare burden and the medical burden on societies, including India's. Moving from global to domestic, Indians are an especially underserved market in India. We all know about the scarcity of doctors and medical staff. The WHO has estimated that a shortage of doctors is at about 6 million, and double that for nurses and for medical staff. So that there's a huge scarcity, and especially the rural population are especially underserved. There's one government hospital bed for more than 2,000 people. There's one state-run hospital for more than 90,000 people. Of course, on one end, we have to start looking at brick and mortar infrastructure. We estimate that out of maybe 720 districts in India, maybe 500 do not even have a hospital. So there's a need to bring hospital facilities and maybe primary health centers in every taluk. But if you look at the 3 pillars of healthcare, access, affordability, and quality, you will see that technology can make a very big difference here. India's foundation has been weak. So 7 on 10 Indians don't have access to primary healthcare facilities. They fall below the poverty line. So the healthcare expenses becomes a huge problem for them. Of course, Ayushman Bharat is starting to address some of these issues, and quality needs to improve. Many doctors, especially in rural India, are not exposed to the healthcare quality required to dispense in these areas. They're seeing diseases that they didn't learn about properly in their medical education. And so with all these 3 factors, access, affordability, and quality, as I mentioned earlier, technology can be the biggest impetus in all 3 of these areas. Access is improving, right? Especially with COVID, we started seeing e-consultations, last mile delivery, pharmaceutical delivery, connected health platforms making a big difference. In India, especially, most hospital and medical systems run on their own digital systems, if they even have a digital system, which most of them don't. But with COVID, we started seeing more collaboration is required between hospitals to see where bed vacancies are, to move patients from isolation wards to COVID wards and back to isolation wards. We had asymptomatic patients that needed to be housed separately. And more than anything else, we needed collaboration between hospitals and between the hospital layer and the government. And that's where technology can start playing a very big role, and has with COVID. Affordability is improving because e-consultations, digitization, scale content, smart credit, the need for, the barrier to providing these systems are coming down with technology. And so that's why affordability is improving. And of course, quality is improving because we can start relying more on machine learning, on Internet of Things, consumer apps, diagnostics. Everyone has a phone these days. A lot of people have smartphones, and we can start moving some of this medical care onto technology platforms to improve quality as well. So with all 3 pillars, we're seeing technology starting to play a really big role. So now we have a completely new set of tools which have been developing slowly over the last 30 years, but now the rate at which they're developing and the rate at which they're providing results, providing platforms is really exponential at this point. We have artificial intelligence, machine learning, computational chemistry, computational biology, biological 3D printing, of synthetic organs and so on. Mobile diagnostics, which starts becoming very important because our mobile penetration has really zoomed up in the last 10 years. Our internet penetration has zoomed up, and more people have smartphones. And so they have access to really good cameras. And that's why rapid image processing starts playing a big role. Genomics and DNA-based testing is, of course, especially with CRISPR, it's really moving the needle on what we're able to do. And with personalized medicine, there's data analytics, of course, with the increasing number of data points we are accruing, not just by the number of people, but also by the number of data points we're picking up by each person. Data analytics is taking off. Miniaturization and wearables is becoming a big market, and that is in turn providing a new set of tools. And of course, internet-based platforms playing a large role. So now, just very quickly, in the aftermath of COVID, as I mentioned earlier, we realized that a lot of the fault lines in our medical care was exposed. One of the biggest ones was the fact that we do not have a collaborative platform for hospitals and the government to collaborate on in the event of an epidemic or a pandemic. Now, COVID is ongoing, and we're starting to see a lot of the faults show up. And we have to be ready when the next pandemic hits with this collaborative platform. And that is where Bharat Health Stack, or the National Health Stack, is starting to play a very big role. What this does is, if you can see my cursor, now just like India Stack and Jam Stack is providing the underlying architecture for running a lot of the subsidy programs, benefit programs, and many other systems on top of it. The National Health Stack will also start with the Jam and India Stack, and then it'll start providing layers like what they're calling the plumbing layer and the augmentation layer, where it'll be standardized architectures for electronic registries, for personal health records, for claims, for matching engines, for diagnostic bots, and for protocol servers. And so we can standardize a lot of that. And that will be what we call in the domain of public infrastructure, public goods. And then on top of that, government, private apps, hospitals, platforms can play their own interfaces on top of these public infrastructure layers, where they can innovate. I can hear an echo. Can you hear me? I think someone needs to go on mute. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Nisha, we can hear you.
Okay,
please go.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. Okay, so as I was saying, these are all public goods infrastructure. These will be standardized, and that helps because when governments, private apps, healthcare providers play their own private data and interfaces on top of the public goods, there is an underlying architecture that is standardized that will help all these parties then start collaborating the next time something like COVID hits. So then you can look at the vacancies in another hospital, you can look at vacancies in another district, the government can look at where to deploy PPE, for example, where there's a shortage and where there is not. You can have the private sector come in for a couple of things. You can have the public sector add in, because we have to remember the premier success of India Stack is that it has been a public-private partnership, and National Health Stack can continue to build on that wonderful layer that they've built to have the public access these facilities better. Moving on, now from here on, I'll just give very quick examples of how technology is pushing the envelope on healthcare, right? Now look at Dozy. Especially with COVID, we saw, in Delhi, even now they're facing the situation where COVID patients are being turned away from hospitals because there aren't enough facilities, there aren't enough beds, there aren't enough ventilators. And so something like Dozy really changes things there, because it's a medical grade sensor that can be placed under any mattress. Again, during COVID, we saw a lot of makeshift facilities being set up, like hotels, gyms, indoor stadiums, and so on. And a sensor like Dozy can quickly be placed under any monitor, under any mattress, and voila, you have a very quick near ICU situation set up in any makeshift place. So you can monitor a lot of cardiac data, respiratory data, sleep data, and so on. And one of the biggest advantages here, apart from the tech enablement, apart from the intelligent deployment, is that it reduces the exposure of care workers to infected patients. Today, we are seeing a lot of doctors contract the virus because we don't have an interface that automatically takes a lot of the patient information. So doctors and other medical staff have to go up to the patient and actually come in contact with them to take their blood pressure and other details. Now, with something like Dozy, all of that changes, and we're able to protect our care workers and health workers better also. Next, 3D printing. This, I think, has one of the biggest implications for Indian healthcare in particular and world healthcare in general. We've all seen a lot of these transplant cases fall through because there just aren't enough donors in the system. And even donating organs is a tricky thing because of the blood type matching, because of the grafting, because of the anti-rejection, and so forth. Now, with 3D printing, there are many companies in India that have successfully started 3D printing liver cells, skin cells, corneal cells. And what we'll soon start seeing is if someone needs to go into the hospital and get a transplant, they can synthetically produce the organ that they need using a few cells from the patient's body, so that it's immediately typed to the patient. It fits them perfectly like lock and key, and the chances of rejecting it is very, very low. So this, I think, is really going to push the envelope on healthcare, and we'll be able to save a lot more lives by doing this. So now, again, just coming to very quick examples, Bugworks is the company that's designing new age antibiotics. This is very important for two reasons. One, the last antibiotic that was designed was back in the 60s. So we're long overdue on the design of new antibiotics. And two, now because of the heavily prevalent use of antibiotics around the world almost, we're seeing more and more superbugs, fungi, bacteria, and virus that are developing antimicrobial resistance. And so there is a need to not only produce new antibiotics, but also match the way the antibiotic works to the way these superbugs propagate, so that we can kill them immediately and very specifically. And that's where Bugworks comes into play, because they've built a machine learning platform with computational biology, computational chemistry, and they're designing these antibiotics specifically to these superbugs, which, in technical parlance, they're across the escape spectrum. There are 6 types of bacteria that cause about 90% of the AMR, the superbug problem. And so to be able to use a virtual platform to quickly find antibiotics for these particular superbugs is big. The other thing this does is, today in a pharmaceutical company, you've got all these PhDs in a big lab trying one compound at a time and hoping it works. With a virtual platform, you can literally screen 5,000, 10,000 compounds at one time, pick the 5, 6 most promising ones, and then go into clinical trials and see how it performs in an animal and then a human setting. So that's why this virtual platform is very important. And this is one way in which technology is really pushing the envelope in medical care. Pandorum does the 3D printing of organs. I already addressed it in the previous slide. This has a lot of implications in tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. So this is also a very exciting company to look at. Now, oncology. Oncology is extremely specific. Each person's cancer is different. And so there is a need to have a very precise technology-based cancer detection program. Also, currently in the norm is you're hardly able to pick up cancer that's in stage 1. It's usually when it goes to stage 2 or even sadly stage 3 that current sensors are able to pick it up. And that's why these mobile first sensing paradigms, or even artificial intelligence based, for example, Nirama has this for early breast cancer screening technology, becomes very important. The more non-invasive, the better, because as we all know, taking those samples from the cancer cells can be extremely painful. So the more technology is able to help us go to a non-invasive solution, the better it is for medical care. Diagnostics, really quick. Today, in India especially, there's a scarcity of diagnostic stuff. More importantly, when today the norm is that, for example, if you take a blood smear and you want to check something, the diagnostic technician puts it under a microscope, and then they have to really look for the abnormalities. They might miss it because of human error or parallax error. And that's why a company like Sictuple is pretty exciting, because they've got a machine learning based platform, and they have automated a lot of this diagnostics in biological fluids like blood smears, like urine, etc. And so technologies like these are not here to replace doctors, but augment their capabilities, and be so that the radiologist or the diagnostic technician are able to cater to more people. Again, Cure AI is another deep learning driven diagnostic radiology company that does similar things. Then, of course, you go to preventative care. You've got personal genetic testing, which is becoming huge. You've got fertility focused content, and that's becoming a bigger problem around the world. So technologies like this are able to help. And then going beyond just this small segment of medical tech and diagnostic tech, we're also seeing a lot of connected health platforms. So CureFit and 10-3T are examples of how they are using wearables, using more people, collect all sorts of data to then be able to push the envelope on medical care. Access, of course, platforms could step out of the house. It was threatening to be face-to-face. And so these e-commerce, and in particular pharmaceutical delivery, really saw an uptake, and is still continuing to see an uptake in these troubling times. Implant chips are very interesting because it starts making very unique things possible. 4,000 odd people have been chipped in Sweden so that they can access all their digital information in their hand. So it's very interesting to see how different use cases are coming out of technology and at the interface of human and technology. And I'll end with CRISPR. Wherever we might stand on the moral issue of CRISPR, gene editing is here to stay. They've already started experimenting in China with making designer babies. And so this is a reality. This is going to become a reality soon, and we have to be ready with what our boundaries are on technology of this sort, while we are still exploring the possibilities with such a technology. And with this, I think I'll stop. We were, a lot of ecosystem partners are showing up in India, and that's becoming very exciting. And technology is enabling the Indian healthcare system to move towards quality healthcare at an affordable cost. And we will wait to see where this is taking us. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nisha, for giving us a brief overview about of the entire healthcare industry, and also sharing some really interesting startups that have emerged in the last few years that are sort of supporting COVID-19. So the most obvious question that I'd like to start with is, so we know that India's GDP has decelerated and is probably in the lowest in the last 6 years, especially in the third quarter of 2019-20. And it is also because of the added outbreak of COVID-19. There are a lot of fresh challenges that have come to play in the healthcare industry. So how do you think the role of startups is going to sort of support or help us in the revival strategy?
This the economic downturn which has come all of a sudden because of COVID is going to be there for the rest of the year. To give some data, this year, the latest estimate from SBI says India will degrow 5.5%. Last year, we are on 203 lakh crores. From there, we'll degrow 5% plus inflation. That means we will reduce our GDP by minimum of 10 lakh crores. 10 lakh crores is a lot of GDP. This is going to be a bad year. And this quarter, April, May, June is going to be a quarter which none of us ever seen in our lives, and hopefully don't want to see it again. And if we invest in this year in infrastructure and government spending, and government is spending 11% of GDP as fiscal deficit, both state and center, hopefully next year will be a better year because there'll be no downturn, and we could grow maybe 9 to 10% in nominal terms. Real could be 6.5, and balance could be inflation. Now, for startups, this is something that has come to aid them and give a wind to their feathers, because we wind to their wings. The reason is most of the startups in this area are digital. They're all using digital technologies to reach out to people, whether you make devices or you do portals on the web to connect people, etc., or you're an aggregator or whatever it is, using digital technologies. And the shutdown has made sure that all the digital technologies are being used by everybody, whether you're a baby boomer, a senior citizen, or Generation X, or Z, or a millennial, or whatever you are, everybody started using it. And suddenly today we see in the regulatory area that specialists are now doing more and more video calls. Now, specialist data says we're not used more than 35-40% of the time. Now, suddenly they're in touch. Telemedicine has taken off. All over India, rural areas connect to urban hospitals, and doctors are working more and doing telemedicine. And that leads to better diagnosis, better use of specialists. And then you're getting medicine delivered at home. And you're also getting many things done digitally. So I think it really helps startups in a big way. Nisha, you want to add?
So I want to comment on healthcare funding, because even though our GDP might be decelerating, it is absolutely critical that our healthcare spending increase. We need more hospitals, we need to train more doctors, and we need the government to invest heavily in health tech, support startups, support more technology platforms, so that we can enable our doctors to serve more patients. We can set up all these telemedicine, Internet of Things. I saw a question show up about that. We can set up these platforms. We can definitely standardize them, and the government can start picking technology platforms to start working with on in a public-private partnership, so that the rural areas get more coverage. This healthcare spending definitely has to increase as a percentage of our GDP.
Thanks, Nisha. Thanks, sir. So I think that's already answered Mr. Shrigna's Lokesh's question that why don't we have a standardized setup in rural villages to treat patients? So while the pandemic has gotten a lot of negative impact, we've also seen some silver lining for startups who are working in the digital space. We have another question from Nived Narayana. He's also founder of this company called Prescribe. He's working on a WhatsApp-based consultation. Nived, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sir, I have the question for you. So, as an active angel investor, right now we have 20 hospitals as clients, and when we meet investors, the usual question they ask is like, they have a dilemma of scaling of startups, like especially B2B digital healthcare startups after 100 hospitals. So, what is your opinion on that?
Look, when you are in B2B, is a very different kind of business, because B2B you're selling to enterprises, and enterprises are hard negotiators. So I think B2B is not a pure tech play. B2B is a marketing play. And you have to invest in marketing. And that means, pounding the payment or talking to them on the web and getting them to do things is a very tough job. Because we find that many healthcare startups have got great technology. We've seen wonderful technology. The challenge they face is, how do you sell? And how do you make sure people buy? And then even if you sell, how do you make sure they pay? Indian hospitals and all are not used to paying. They think that digital means everything is free, like a Flipkart that gives you deep discount. Everything comes free. They ask you what is the cost, etc. So I think my advice to everybody in health tech is, please invest in marketing. You all invested heavily in product development. You got great techies, but you need to have a marketing person. In fact, Shraddha Sharma of Your Story has always been saying that every startup should have three different people: a visionary, the CEO, who knows what the market is, what needs to be done; a hacker, a techie, who's pure technology; and a hustler. And the hustler is the marketing guy, because the B2B is all about marketing, believe me. And I think that's where you have to invest. It's a tough job. Right now, people could be more amenable because they're all hurt and they've got more time, because, they don't spend time commuting, they don't spend time running around. They got more time and they're more willing to close deals. That's what we find in B2B business. But you need to sell. You need to identify people and sell.
Just to add to that, I've been in the same place that you have, Navid, because Nived, sorry. I'm a co-founder of a biotech startup, and what I've learned is, in the hospital, anything you want to change, whether it's an equipment or a digital platform, they think about it 10 or 100 times, because it changes their entire workflow. And any disruption to their workflow means they can serve less patients, even in the few days it takes for them to catch up. And so they will think about it very hard. you have to anticipate the question of how will it disrupt my workflow, and be ready with at least 5 ways to stop that disruption for them to even consider talking to you sometimes.
Thank you. I think that's answered Nived's question. Nived, can we move on?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next question is from Viverva Health. We have Arvind who's asking about the telemedicine again. And he says that a lot of everybody is talking about telemedicine, but the number of downloads of the healthcare apps has been considerably less. So obviously we have so many apps and depending on the impact, but what do you think is the mentality of people who are actually using digital health? And do you think there's going to be any a paradigm shift in how people are going to actually look at digital health in the future?
Look,
So
when it
before,
yeah,
okay,
go ahead. No,
okay,
go ahead.
so before COVID, I would have, what you said is completely true. But now you look at Arogya Setu, right? It's an health app. It came out, and in less than 13 days, it got 50 million downloads. You know which app had that record before Arogya Setu? It was Pokemon Go, an extremely addictive app. Now it's Arogya Setu because people are understanding that having health information on their screen available at all times and very quickly updated is a huge plus. So I think going beyond COVID, there's going to be a lot less friction for people to download healthcare apps. And I especially think that a lot of health apps need to start integrating with the government, needs to start integrating with the national health stack, so that the downloads becomes easier and the government can start pushing some of these platforms. Yeah, MDP, please go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think. You see, my view is very clear. People are changing their habits, but it is going to take some time. There has been a sudden outflow, rush of people doing telemedicine, but it's going to be it's going to take some time before everybody goes on it. Primarily because for most of us, health is a high-touch show, right? When we fall ill, we want to go see a physical doctor. We want to talk to them. We want to, touch and feel. We want sympathy from the human being, etc. And we want to be reassured that they're going to be okay. But now on the digital way, the best thing is to tackle the doctors. Today, doctors can't see patients. They're not able to earn fees. And I think doctors are very eager to use telemedicine. And they will ask everybody to do it. For example, in Manipal Hospital, about 35-40% of all consultation is to telemedicine. It's happened automatically because the hospital is not seeing patients because of people are not able to move, and there is lockdown all over, and many people want to talk and they're calling up, so they're all putting them on video, and specialists are there. So we're able to get more and more doctors to use it, to doctors portals, getting into the doctors network. I think you'll find a faster, adoption.
Thank you, sir. I think the key is behavioral change, which we've been seeing in the last few months. Moving to the next question, we have a question from Frederick. Frederick, would you like to go ahead and unmute and ask the question?
Hi, Mohan. The question is to you. I'm Frederick. I'm founder of Kernew MedTech. We're more a deep tech, image-guided based technology company for point-based therapy. I have a very straight question to you. I've been following some of the investments happening in the healthcare syndicate around. As we were even speaking about medtech, there is I don't know if it is a wrong intention or it is very limited intention that medtech or health tech is not only limited to informatics. I see very less number of Indian investors are looking into invest, in a very deep tech, let's say for technologies which are assistance for minimally invasive surgeries or ophthalmologic procedures or like surgical procedures, surgical technologies, which basically need huge amount of investment. Why not do we see any kind of money flowing into this direction? Is it a common intention that it is a high risk business, or what is maybe the Indian investors are not looking for any novelty in there, or what is the problem? Maybe you can share your views.
The problem is, one, it is very new. It's very new, so people don't understand how it is going to be.
Exactly.
Second, the revenue model is not very clear. How are they going to make revenues? How is people going to use, etc. The use case is very clear, but the revenue model is not very clear. And third, there are not many fund of funds dedicated to medtech. you need some fund of funds too, or you need some fund dedicated to medtech. I know only some 3 or 4 funds dedicated to medtech, because these are all very specialized activities, right? Now, when you have general deep tech technology, it can be used across a variety of verticals. Now, when you have very sharp imaging processing capacity, you have an algorithm or you have an AI technology, and you're using it for brain scanning, how do you demonstrate it can be used across many areas? Now, that's difficult because it's a very specialized thing, doing it only for the brain, and that can be used in only particular hospital by particular people, and people feel it's got a very restricted scope. So the key is to show how the market can be expansive, because please remember, anybody making money in a startup wants to know how they're going to make money. And the only way to make money in such deep technology is when there is large scale adoption, or when you're bought out by somebody who is selling very expensive equipment for the same thing, limited number, and who feel threatened. For example, if you got a brain scan and a huge machine which costs 20-30 crores, and you come out with a much cheaper, low-cost app which can do maybe 80-90%, those people are willing to buy you out as a defensive measure to just to shut you down so that they don't lose their business, right? Because the applications are limited. So I think the key is understanding the market, understanding whom to sell, and trying to create a revenue model. That, to my mind, is the key to success.
Excellent. That was the attitude also that I had. That was a very nice answer. Thanks a lot, Mohan. I have to leave now. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Frederick. Thank you, sir. The next question is from Dr. Alan Matthew. He is part of SRMC. He's just started the new incubator at SRMC. So his question is, tissue engineering research has been prevalent in India for a while, but we've not seen any major products taking off. The R&D cost, regulations, and time obviously are the real concerns. How do you think this can probably improve or go forward?
Nisha, you'll talk about this one. You know better.
Yeah. So we were talking about behavioral change during COVID, and we're seeing this not just on the consumer side or the layperson side, but also on the regulator side and the government side. We've seen, regulations, regulatory bodies have like DCGI and so on have worked at record speeds to start certifying products and to start testing products that can go into the market. We've seen 25 diagnostic kits come out for COVID in record time, and they're all being, all very high quality, frugal innovation. So I think tissue engineering, 3D, bio 3D printing, a lot of these deeper science platforms, as you mentioned, I need a lot more, have a lot higher R&D costs. But I think the government is going to start becoming open to a lot of these things. At the Center for Cellular and Molecular Platforms, CCAMP in Bangalore, we're also seeing the government starting to look at these issues more seriously thanks to COVID. And I have some hope that now we might turn a corner here.
Now, Nisha, the person who is running this business, can they contact CCAMP, and can CCAMP help them out and advise them what they need to do as far as regulatory matters are concerned?
Oh, definitely. CCAMP already works with the IIT Madras incubator. They've developed a diagnostic technology together for AMR bacteria to quickly screen superbugs. And anytime you all want to reach out to CCAMP, they can help with a lot of these regulatory and grant approval processes with the Department of Biotechnology in the Government of India.
In fact, I would say that IIT Madras, the medical incubator, should also start talking to government to improve the quantum of grants that are to be given to startups. Because for all the research-based medtech startups, R&D takes a lot of time and money. So you need a grant mechanism, you need a funding mechanism, equity funding mechanism. Without the grant, the equity funding will be long drawn. It takes long years. It's going to take a lot of time. But the grant mechanism has to be enhanced. I mean, we find all around the world that grants are available much easier in the United States and other countries. In India, the grant mechanism is very limited. So I think, Muthu, you must maybe talk to people and see how to expand that, getting well-known hospital, well-known medical entrepreneurs and others to also come together to contribute to create a much larger kitty for grants.
Absolutely. I think that's something that they're trying to do. During the COVID incident, they have actually given out quite a bit of money for implementation.
Yeah, and Nisha, you'll talk about that act, your act, your setup act,
yes.
Right?
Yes, yes, yes. So 314 Capital is one of the founding donors for ACT. It's an action for COVID program that was started at the very beginning of the lockdown when the number of cases in India was rising. And they support a lot of startups who have come out with COVID-based technologies. This is one of the focus areas. So definitely, I see Siddhant Gupta has asked that question. You can reach out to ACT directly, and you can reach out to the 314 portfolio directly on the website, and they answer very quickly. So you should definitely, an anti-COVID glove sounds very interesting. I would urge you to connect in both these places.
And also, Muthu, just talk to Anand Kumar of Bugworks. Okay, you might know him, right?
Okay.
Because Anand Kumar has got great expertise in identifying global grant bodies and getting grants from them.
Okay.
He's truly an extraordinary guy, because see, the problem we have, Muthu, is all the medtech people are techies. They get carried away by technology. They do something wonderful and they're very happy. Then they wonder why people are not buying. What do I do? Where do I get the money? They get stumped. Now, Anand has perfected the art of raising grants. He's raised more than $15 million of grants in the last 4 years for Bugworks. So I think you should send me a mail. I'll put you in touch. He can possibly have a call about how he built Bugworks, what he did, how we get the grants, and have a master class for grant for applying for grants and how to identify and what to do.
Absolutely, that'll be very useful, because we've just got lots of requests how to apply even for the local grants.
Yeah.
So applying for the local grants, I can shed some light on it. The Department of Biotechnology, Government of India has done a fantastic job with early stage grants. They're working on mid stage and late stage, but early stage, there's plenty of funding, especially now with COVID. They're putting out more grants for COVID-based technologies, for adjacent technologies. And in general, I think DBT, the Department of Biotechnology, is one of the more focused grant funding organizations within the science and tech umbrella in India. So please go check out their website, and they're very, very quick at choosing startups and giving you a quick answer on whether you're getting the grant or not. And they're very quick at dispersing the money after you've gotten the grant. So definitely please check out DBT.
We are a DBT incubator. So all that.
Oh, great.
For us. And recently we also been made a satellite center for DST for the South. So
wonderful.
We are discussing that COVID grant. So we are busy doing the DD. I never knew DD was so hard to do.
Superb to hear. My interactions with DBT have been nothing but happy. So very happy to hear that.
So they've been, we are like, actually, I've told this to Mohan, HDIC is the cluster head for Tamil Nadu. So we have 8 or 9 incubators, and some of them are on this program right now. It's like SRN part of the program. So you're right. They actually help if you're trying to help. So like, because we keep pushing them, so they keep on helping us with certain activities.
Wonderful.
Very good. Wonderful.
And it's not like the other government agencies here. You keep pestering them, you get stuff.
Okay.
If you keep quiet, they don't give you anything. But that's good. That helps us because we are good at asking, so it helps us. Great.
Good. So moving on. Sorry. The next question is from Danbal. He's asking, do you think the Indian medical regulation is going to take any improvisations or changes in terms of regulatory because of COVID?
So definitely, Indian medical regulation.
Medical regulation.
Yeah, go on, Nisha.
So definitely during COVID, we saw them really speed up. Traditionally, the Indian medical regulatory authorities have been laggards. They do not do their operations, certification operations or regulatory operations as quickly as the FDA or the CE and so on. But during COVID, we saw them running at full speed. And what we're hoping for is that this becomes the new normal. They continue working at this speed so that more and more of our technologies can come out really quickly. Because we have to understand that India imports 95% of its medical technology that it uses. This is not a good position to be in, especially when COVID showed us that when the global demand goes up, we may not be able to get our share, and our population is high. So we usually need a larger share of all these medical technologies, and that we may not be able to get it in a pandemic type situation where global demand is high. where supply chains are down, and we do not want to be in that situation again. So we have to look at more high quality Indian indigenous products, and for that our regulatory authorities have to step up to be able to take on that burden. And so we're hoping that this full speed that they're running on during COVID continues to go on even after COVID sort of goes away. So fingers crossed on this, Dhanbal, but time will tell.
Thank you, Nisha. So would you like to add to that point?
No, I think Nisha has answered it well.
Okay, thank you. So next we have Jaikant. He's also a startup at IIT Madras. He's working on continuous monitoring of ICU beds. Recently, he's also gotten the Kavach program grant to support the COVID patients working at different frontline hospitals. So his question is, now telemedicine and platform are mostly focused on video platform for consulting. How do you think telemedicine can grow beyond video consulting? And what are the other clinical elements that can be brought in?
You see, essentially now what the government is thinking about is connecting all rural health centers on telemedicine. And of course, you can use devices to capture all the data and transmit to the person on the other side. Because just having a voice conversation to tell them what is happening is not going to be there. If you have video, I think in 95% of India, you can have video. The doctor can see the patient and identify the problems, make them open their mouth and see inside the mouth or whatever it is. Or on the other side, you can have a set of devices which can be used to check up the human condition and transmit to the expert on the other side. So I think we need a lot of technologies, and technologies which will work where there is no power through maybe just wireless with batteries, technologies which will work where there is good video, technologies that will work where audio is available and video is not. So I think that people have to think through it and come out with a variety of things so that this could work everywhere. But I would urge all of you just work on video technologies right now, because that's going to be the new normal. We already have 4G coverage across most part of India, and in a short while everybody will have that kind of coverage. For example, about 165,000 villages have broadband connectivity under the government program. Now, the government is accelerating to reach another 150,000 villages in the next 1 or 2 years. So I think there's going to be a remarkable transformation to look to the future.
And Jaikant, I'm a chemical engineer. I've done hardware product development, so I have a little bit of a nerd answer here. I'm seeing a lot of other adjacent technologies starting to come into health tech. For example, haptics, right? What if we had a glove that I could wear on my end, and I'm a doctor, and there's a device, and I'm actually able to feel the patient's body, check their blood pressure with this glove, staying here with sensors. So we're going to see a lot of these adjacent technologies come in, like new materials, material engineering, haptics, all sorts of electronics, MEMS, microfluidics. There's a lot of adjacent technologies that we can think of beyond just the video consulting that telemedicine has started off with. So that personally gets me very excited, and we'd see, and I'm hoping India can be at the forefront of that, because we have a lot of smart people working in all these areas that can now be brought under the health umbrella.
Thank you. The next question is from Aditya Srinivas. He says that he's developing a nano-silver based sanitizer and disinfectant for COVID, and these can be made at as affordable thing as ₹10 per liter, but they've not really been able to get any grants. So would you be able to share some opportunities that they can explore?
Nisha?
So again, I would go back to the DBT grants. There's a lot of organizations like ACT that I mentioned, where venture capital funds and other investors and startup founders have come together for specific COVID-related products. So I would definitely urge Aditya to check out all these platforms. A lot of government organizations like the Department of Biotechnology are coming out with a research indigenization consortium, where they want to start producing more and more technologies in India, as I mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of these adjacent places where you can start getting grants. So I would urge Aditya to look at all these options.
Can I just add to that? Aditya, I'm not familiar with this, because I think you're not in my incubator. Are you in an incubator at the moment? Because I think they can also help you.
We are an incubated company, in bio incubator.
Where are you incubated?
In bio incubator.
Where in IIT Madras?
Yeah, in IIT Madras.
Okay, so come speak to us. Come speak to us. We see how we can help you, because within IIT Madras we also have that support grant.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Mr. Muthu. He is also part of SRMC Incubator and he's working on mobile app and research capacity building. So he's asking if there's any market for research capacity building right now.
Yeah, what is the question? Yeah, go ahead, Nisha.
No, I was going to say I'll let you talk about it because you've been exploring this for a while. It's about mobile app and he's asking about mobile apps and research capacity building. How do you build a market for research capacity?
You see, again, you see, research capacity is pre-medicated and availability of funding. Now, if it all boils down to funding, and in India, we don't have enough funding to be given to all innovators who are trying to do research using mobile apps or whatever kind of technology that you want to use. So to my mind, we have to expand the research kitty. So what I would urge you is find out the actual users for your kind of technology and research area and find out to whom it could benefit. And through that, try to reach out to them and talk to them about what they're doing, create a framework and show them some kind of bare bones technology that you have developed and try to get them interested. Because to me, the future is mobile. We all know that. Everybody says that. But how do you do mobile-based research and how do you use research grants to get the kind of products that you want? Now, that is a tough fact. So you got to pinpoint, you got to market. Once again, funding is also come down to marketing. You should know how to raise capital. You should know how to identify. That's why my suggestion, again, Muthu, is you must call Anand Kumar from Bugworks, and maybe he can help you because, you need people who actually done that. See,
Sure.
we are venture capitalists. People come to us. A lot of people come to us. We go to events like Muthu's place and talk to people. Then we see what is interesting. Then we take it on. But there are a lot of people who create technology and they require small amounts of money that can be given by incubators, that can be given by actual users. That's a whole new ball game. Yeah, Muthu.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
The next question is from Yash. Yash is also an incubated startup at the MedTech Incubator. Yash, would you like to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Yash.
So my question is that this year is going to be difficult for all businesses, and we are a growing startup. So we are also planning to raise funds in some time, but at least not this year. So next year, if we want to raise funds, so would you value the company at the same level or at the same growth rate it was pre-COVID, or would things change?
Yes. What people are going to value is what you're going to grow in the future. All right. But I have to warn you, valuation expectations have come down because people are building in greater amount of risk into valuation models. Before COVID, they were excited of growth and going only for growth. Now they're putting a lot of risk into growth. And even if you say, I'm going to grow 100% in the next 3 months, they're going to cut it down and say, hey, man, you can grow 50%, 60%, blah, 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 unless they've seen you grow during the COVID times. So I would think that you have to be very careful. And let me also tell you something, Yash. Valuation is essentially a discussion between two people. You should know how to sell and get people excited, and they should be willing to buy your story. And they're all willing to buy your story, provided you can sell your story well. Honestly, because, I see many people talking about valuation models and all. It doesn't work that way. When you are a young startup, you go meet people, you present to them, you talk to them and say, I want to raise so much of money. This money is required for doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm willing to give you so much percentage of my company. Then the venture capitalist interested say, hey, that's a good idea. I like your idea. I think you'll do it, but I'm willing to give that money, but I want Y percentage. Then they negotiate and settle for something. And when they negotiate, the venture capitalists will be thinking look, this guy may require more money in the next 2 or 3 rounds. And we have to make sure that I don't have too much of a high stake so that others come in and can increase the valuation. And we also have to make sure that the entrepreneur does not dilute his stake so much that he becomes an employee. So they will also try to give a better valuation to you because they want you involved in the business for a longer period of time. Of course, with the priority, with liquidity preferences and all the kind of stuff to protect themselves. Because once you have liquidity preferences and you have those kind of agreements, then you are protected at different levels of valuation. So it becomes much easier to decide. So you have to practice selling, you have to practice getting them interested, and that is where you get whatever valuation you think you should get. And you've got to be careful of valuation because when you get a valuation, you're promising something. The valuation is not built on thin air. You're making some projections, you're trying to reach some numbers, and you've got to have a decent probability of reaching those numbers. And if you don't even have a decent probability, is all in the air, then you are in trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a follow-up question from Jaykant. We know we're nearing 5 o'clock. We just have one more question from Dhanush. Would it be okay to take that, sir, as well?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Jaykant, you can go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yeah. Hello. Jaykant here. So I'm running a B2B startup. We are into ICU automation, and we've been, to a certain extent, successful. We do ICU automation, remote monitoring. So we completely serve the hospitals. We sell to hospitals. And as we discussed initially, and as you mentioned, marketing seems to be the key here. So what elements of marketing that you want to specifically focus? Because there are hospital is a multi-stakeholder business, and it is reasonably tough to get into them. So superficial marketing may not really work. So I would like to understand your opinion, like what elements of marketing that you want us to focus on to sell to hospitals.
See, let me give you some ideas. What is the problem with ICUs today? Well, let me tell you, because we got 4,000 bed hospitals all over in Manipal. The problem with ICU is, one, it is very high cost. And why is it high cost? Because it's all about people. You got to put a lot of people, 24/7, lot of equipment, everything else, right? It's very, very high cost. So what do most people want to do? Most people want to improve productivity.
Exactly.
Want to reduce the people being there all the time. They want a great degree of automation. So you got to develop case studies how, using your technology, you're able to monitor all the activities that's happening to the patient, pull in early warning systems, etc., and make the staff more productive, reduce the cost, and have a better throughput. How does throughput come? Because of all the things that you do, you're able to make sure the patient gets better faster, or you're able to identify is getting faster. You can move them out of the place and get somebody in, because the ICU is a high-cost place. And next, which is very important, like Nisha said, I think Nisha made a great point. The ICU is very process-oriented. Everybody has been trained to do certain things. You can't shift it. You can't shut it down. You can't close it. You can't touch it. So everybody is worried. How do you make new technology happen? How do you make this happen? So you've got to think about how to put it into place the least disruption with the least revenue loss, without doing anything, without greater need for training, blah, blah, blah. Work through all the parameters to make it as simple as possible, as easy as possible. So when you go and sell, you can tell everybody, I can put it up in 2 hours. You don't have to do anything. I can come at lax time and put it up, and I can train your people. I can do this, blah, blah, blah. The ease of use, I think, is very important. What do you say, Nisha?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better.
Okay, got it. Yeah, we are almost doing that, and
keep doing. Yeah. Is it getting the first 5 guys are very difficult? Get the first 5 guys.
So Jaykant, you have to be ready for a 3, 6, 9 month conversation with these guys. You have to show up every day. You have to show them that you're serious about changing things and making things better for them. And then slowly they will start taking you seriously. So it's a very big trust relationship, and you have to be ready to, show up every day and just show that you can be trusted.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. We have Dhanush who's asking a question as well. He's from Kriya Neurotechnology, and he is actually working on a neuromotor disorder, Parkinson's, developing assistive technology for neuromotor disorder. So Nisha, Dhanush, please go ahead. You have two questions for Mr. Mohan and also Ms. Nisha. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope that Pratisha has introduced our team. So my name is Dhanush. So I have questions for to Mohandas sir as well as to Ms. Nisha, ma'am. So the first question is, sir, actually you have spoken that the best part to invest right now in the current scenario is in marketing. That's what I was able to understand from the presentation and the previous questions. My doubt is actually, so we are a startup and we are trying to approach to hospital, as Ms. Nisha ma'am told that it takes a long time to actually to build a partner, build a relation and trust between them. So what we were thinking is it a right approach to have our people directly reaching the hospital? Actually, I was able to come to people like associate brokers who are in constant touch with 20 or 30 people, 20 hospitals, sorry. So is it, which one is the right way, sir? What is your opinion on this? Either, as ma'am told, like you have to go every day. Is it like one group, like broker associate do the job, or do we need our people to do that? So what
See,
is
my view is you break up the market into 2 or 3 parts.
Okay,
there are some marquee hospitals or clients where you have to go and prove, because if you get them, there'll be a reference for you for everybody else. And there, going through somebody else is not going to work. All right? That is very difficult. So you have to do that. Second, there are small hospitals which is very difficult for you to reach, where some people have great influence. So use this, I won't say brokers, use these intermediaries to go talk to them and see whether they can sell and get them on board, because they've been supplying, supplying many supplies to them. They know what to do, etc. And they're able to get their way through. So I think you have to segment the market and come out with appropriate strategies in each category based upon your ability to sell, based upon the size of the deal, and based upon the time and quantum that is required. Because in your kind of selling, people will ask for references. Do you have any big doctor, big hospital having a reference? Why are they not using it? If it's so good, what is it why are they not using it? You've got to answer the question. For that, you need to get them on board, right?
Okay, sir. Yeah, I understood, sir. Thanks for that opinion and answer, sir. Yeah. I have another question to Nisha ma'am as well. Yeah. So, actually, you told so can I go? Can I move on?
Yes, Dhanush, please ask your question.
Yeah. So, as you told, like, so previous to this COVID scenarios, that we have our technology has been exported max indigenously, rather than supplying to our people. So, my doubt is, I heard that there are some export restrictions been relaxed. Is it true? With the current scenario, ma'am, what is your opinion on that? So we have any idea on what has happened to the export restrictions scenarios?
So with regard to export restrictions, it has been there are a lot of changes coming up with export restrictions thanks to COVID. We had first put a restriction on hydroxychloroquine, and then we started exporting to 40 countries. So that's different because our pharmaceutical industry is much more stable, it's much more mature, and so we're playing at a very different export-import game at that level. India is a very big generics exporter, but that's not true for medtech. So I think the export restrictions for pharmaceutical will have to be decoupled from medtech. We need a new policy. There is a new medtech manufacturing policy in the works, and now that has to be extended to our export policy as well. But for that, we first need to orient our market towards exports. As I mentioned earlier, we have 95% of our medtech is imported, so we have to change that equation. We now have to go find all these innovators. There are many innovators in India, including many people on this call who have new technologies, but we have to now start integrating with the government. understand how we can change the equation on imports and exports, and then try and change that equation, start exporting more, and then we can start looking at export restrictions. So it's a very nascent question right now, because of course our medtech market is not at the same level as our pharmaceutical market.
Okay. So the final question is, like, you spoke about that our regulatory boards are working faster at the current scenario. So my question is, so both our devices, actually we do 2 devices on assistive and monitoring aspect for movement disorders. So both our falls under class 2 FD, under FD as well as the European standards. It falls under class 2. And so, is there any regulatory relaxations for lesser life-threatening equipments like in class 2? Do you have any idea on that?
So that, again, the regulatory authorities are still figuring out some things there, because a class 2 is usually patient adjacent, but there's a lot of restrictions on what can go into an ICU. There's a lot of restrictions on how it goes into an ICU workflow in the hospital, and that is part of the equation on a class 2 monitoring device. So again, we will have to wait to see how this changes in the wake of COVID. But before COVID, it was not very easy to get the class 2 regulatory through. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of, they had a lot of asks, but we'll see if that changes with COVID.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the opinions.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhanush. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, sir. Before I hand over the session to our CEO again, I'd like to just mention one thing, that this was the session 1 of today's series. We have a quick break of 15 minutes, and then we will be moving on to the next series with Mr. Sergey Bachu, who is the Managing Director of Sparta Group and also a Director at Deshpande Foundation and Education Trust. So you guys please stay tuned, and over to our CEO, Mr. Muthu Singara.
I want to say thank you to Nisha and Mohan. Mohan, I must say, fantastic. You're always very patient. You always want to give us the time. I really appreciate that. Nisha, I'm the digital network, the European Digital Network, and I remember 2 years ago, there was 350,000 medical apps, and none of them had very few had more than 5,000 downloads. And we used to wonder why. And we used to wonder why. But today you said, yes, things can change, and a app coming from nowhere can be downloaded 5 million times. So there's still hope for everybody. So that's very good. Absolutely. And I got another comment from another doctor just now on my mobile saying, after listening to Nisha, it looks like there's hope for the healthcare innovation.
Thank you.
And of course, as always, Mohan only speaks with data. And I think that is something the startups should take away this evening. With data, we can get somewhere. With no data, we can't get anywhere. So with that, I really, really thank both of you.
Muthu,
yes,
Muthu, I have one suggestion for you. Why don't you create a partnership with, let's say, 100 hospitals across South India or India, who will become partners to your incubator. And what you promise them is they will get the first shot to have a look at new technologies. It will help your incubators, and they as partners will allow you to come inside. Because the key thing is, how do your incubators get a hearing? And for hearing, you must get them enter into a partnership deal with them. Where partnership is just that you give access, you'll get the first shot at case, and it's a very good thing for both of you.
Okay, now that you said that, just this week, I've told all the 10 incubators, we're going to put up a website where we're going to list all the hospitals which is going to do testing for us, where all the mentors are going to come and help, and every incubator has to place its number of equipment. It's going to be up and running in the next 6 weeks or so. See, since I'm I'm sort of managing that 10 incubators, so I'm trying to, even all these talks we're doing, we arrange everything, we do everything, and we ask everyone to come. Because I think one of the things we need to do is, and I keep telling even Byrak, we should not worry which incubator does it. It should be an Indian company. It should be an Indian company. It doesn't matter if it's from Karnataka, it's from Gujarat, it's from Tamil Nadu, but it should be an Indian company making that effect. And after this, Dash has actually asked Sebi to speak today. He said he doesn't know healthcare much, so he'll ask somebody else to speak. So they're going to get good deal today. 3 wonderful speakers to help them out. So I'm going to send you a mail on Anand. I need you to help me. And one more thing as well, I think I want to invite you as well. We're going to do a virtual investors meet for the 10 incubators. So I will have Anurag or somebody come along, because he's the guy who works. I'll do that. I will send you the details once I put everything together, because I don't think we should sit and do nothing during COVID. So every day we keep on doing something to make sure the startups are engaged. So that's our wish. And we really, really thank you for, I mean, of course, you're part of our board. You have no choice but to help you. So I suppose that is something you have to do, but still you were very, very patient. You did not rush your question, and it was fantastic. And thank you, Nisha. And you need to drop by and see our incubator as well. Mohan has done that before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Muthu. Looking forward.
Thanks.
After COVID. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye, Pratishtha. Bye.
Okay, we'll come back in the next 5-10 minutes. If you want to go for a break and come back for our next activity.